This is Jake Snyder from Minus the Bear, and you're listening to The New Scene.
Midnight on the beach in the Mediterranean.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to The New Scene. I'm your host, Keith, and we're back with another brand new episode. And on the show this week, we have Rocky Votolato. You know him from Waxwing. You know him from his solo career. And you will know him from his new band, Suzzallo. Their debut LP comes out this Friday, and it's called The Quiet Year. It's an excellent record. Definitely check it out. And this was a really special conversation. We cover the origin of Suzzallo, how the band was born from tragedy, but also how the band became a way for Rocky to process the grief he experienced over the loss of his child, Kienan. We also talk sobriety, mental health, Rocky's whole musical history. It's a great conversation, and that's coming up shortly. But first, here's how you can support The New Scene. Rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We have a main channel with full video episodes and a clips channel with clips from select episodes. We have shirts for sale at our store at Death Wish Inc. Pick one up. It's a great way to support the show. And you can follow us on social media at New Scene Pod. Also, don't forget to support Iodine Recordings. The pre-order is up now for the debut LP from Drought. It's called Souvenir. They've got a new single up right now called We're the Flora, and it features Pat Flynn of Fiddlehead. The record's coming out Friday, July 18th, so pre-order it now. Iodine Recordings will be partnering with Samsara Records to bring some of their records back to vinyl for the first time and in represses, so keep an eye out for that. The Beautiful Mistake have West Coast tour dates with Audio Karate. Check their page or the Iodine page for a full list of dates. The Iron Roses have European tour dates kicking off in July. Check their page or the Iodine page for a full list of dates. Head to iodinerecordings.com, sign up for the email list, and you can follow the label on Instagram at Iodine Recordings. And don't forget to show some love to our sponsor for the month of April, Persistent Vision Records. Persistent Vision Records is a DIY-focused label based in Richmond, Virginia, and it's home to releases from bands like Page 99, Kowloon Walled City, Rain, Blind Girls, Farn, and more. And you can order online at persistentvisionrecords.com. And here's some updates from the label. The lineup for Dark Days, Bright Nights 2025 has just been announced. It takes place September 26th through the 28th in Richmond, Virginia. And this year's lineup features City of Caterpillar, Uniform, Sleepy Time Trio, a Sleepy Time Trio reunion. What? Dazzling Killmen, Cherubs, and many more. 3-day passes are on sale right now. There's a limited repressing of Page 99's Document Number 8 LP. It's limited to 500 copies. Check the Persistent Vision store or Death Wish Inc. to see if there's any left. These were leftovers from their European tour. Pygmy Lush have a new LP coming out, and it's called Totem. Keep an eye out for the pre-order. It should be up soon on persistentvisionrecords.com. This is Pygmy Lush's first release in more than 10 years. So that's going to be great. And the pre-order is up for Variable Losses. That's the new LP from Joliet. They're a Mexico City-based post-hardcore band. Make sure you check them out. For more information and to browse the shop, head to persistentvisionrecords.com, and you can follow the label on Instagram at persistentvisionrecords. Okay, so check back in with me in segment 3. That's right, there will be a segment 3 this week. We'll do a recap of the conversation with Rocky. I'll tell you everything that's been going on with me. I'll do a recap of the Refused final tour, which I attended a couple weeks ago. We'll cover everything, but right now, we are going to speak to Rocky Votolato. Enjoy. All right, we are here now with Rocky Votolato. Rocky, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me, Keith.
Yes, Rocky, it's great to have you here. I mean, you've done so much over the years. Waxwing, your incredible solo career. We have an excellent new band called Suzzallo, and I'm very excited for everybody to hear The Quiet Year, which is coming out May 2nd, everybody, so make sure you check it out. when it's out. And we're going to get to all that, Rocky. But first, I want to ask you, how are you doing today?
Doing pretty good today. I was excited to be here and to talk to you on the show. When I checked it out, I saw so many really cool artists and other songwriters and bands that you've interviewed on the show. So no, it's an honor to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course, it's great to have you here. 30-something Records was sponsoring the show, and I was talking to Matthias.
Yes.
And he's like, I want to recommend a guest, Rocky. And I was like, yes,
oh, nice.
Rocky. I've heard Rocky. So that, and then, I messaged him. I didn't hear back, but then I saw the PR hit for the Suzzallo record, and I was like, yes, this is it. So thankfully, you are here now, and we're doing it.
Yeah, I'm glad it worked out. I love Matthias. He's awesome. I've been working with him for a long time, and 30-something Records is really great. So it's great to be on that label now. Yeah,
it's an awesome label. So what's your setup out there in Seattle? Are you married, girlfriend? What's going on?
Yeah, I'm married, and we've been together. Gosh, I think we're almost to our. We were just trying to figure it out. 27-year anniversary. So it's been a while. Since '98, we've been together. Got married in '99.
Wow. So you're like what, 48?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. So you're telling me you've been married since like 21, 22, somewhere around there?
Yeah, got married pretty young.
Wow.
We were kids, it felt like. Yeah, and I had just moved to Seattle like a few years before that, So, but she was born and raised here. One of the few people who's actually from Seattle, because so many people move in and are transplants around here. But yeah, my wife April lived here, and I moved up here when I was in high school, and and so this is home.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question. Okay. Getting married that young, how has it been for you? And I know that could be like a 1-hour answer in and itself, but all right, here's what I'm thinking. When I was young, I was a mess. I was depressed, addicted, alcoholic, selfish, ruined any good relationship that could have happened. Sometimes held it together, sometimes didn't. I would say not until my 30s did I even begin to really act like an adult. How about for you? I mean, have you gone through a lot of ups and downs? Were you able to be present and mature enough in a relationship to be married that young?
I mean, I think it's a miracle that we made it through because, we were, like I said, we were just kids in our early 20s. We got together and we had a lot of those same faults and, problems that people have when they're just growing up. And somehow it was just like love at first sight. And we always knew we wanted to be together. So we just stayed together through all the hard stuff that we had to work out, to become better partners. And also we had kids, so, that was another part of it. She had a daughter before from a previous relationship when we met. So her daughter was 5, Autumn, who's now my daughter, who I adopted. And so she started calling me dad like a couple years after we were together. And then we had Kienan, our child, together not long after we met. And so it was kind of like, that's one of the things, even though it was a challenge then, I think it kept us together and, gave us a reason to keep fighting for the relationship and the marriage, which we were always deeply in love. But yeah, to your point, we had, I was a normal kind of messed up punk kid. And so was she, and we had all kinds of things we had to learn and work out to make the marriage work. But now, I couldn't be more grateful that we stayed together and we're happier than we've ever been, in the marriage now, which all we've been through is incredible. I think it's kind of a miracle because, a lot of couples who go through the kind of things we've been through in the last, few years don't stay together. So.
Right. Exactly. My family has been through some similar things and I've seen what people go through. So it is, well, first of all, if any marriage stays together, what's the divorce rate? Like 50% or something like that? It's high.
It is. It might go higher than that. Yeah.
Yeah, but if you put tragedy and hardship and all of that on top of it already, it just makes things even more difficult. But that's a good point. Yeah. See, whenever I came to a point in my life where it was like make the right decision or the wrong one, I always made the wrong one. It was like stay with the person. No, Stop getting loaded all the time? No.
Yeah.
Like, make this right choice? No. Let's go further down the rabbit hole and see how horrible we can make things. But, you know,
Well, I'm
if
glad
you
you're still here then in that case. I
yeah,
mean,
but it's
you
like
look
if you
great.
stay in the relationship and you have kids, you have anchors, you have things to work towards, positive goals to work towards. So that makes sense.
Totally. Well, yeah, that's great. I mean, I quit drinking, and I got sober in, what was it, 2011, I want to say.
Hmm.
So, gosh, it's been a while since then, but that helps a lot in itself. Just making life that's already difficult. If you have depression and anxiety and all that, I found for me, it was just like pouring gasoline on the fire. So things got easier to handle in general just after making that one decision.
Yes, I was messy already, but put drugs and alcohol on top of that, and it just revolutionized the out of control behavior, and the inability to regulate emotions and all that. So you got sober in 2011. What led you to that point? What was going on when you were like, I have to be done? And then how did you do it?
Yeah, for me, it was kind of, it was crazy. I just one day decided, it's like a realization dawned on me that I was just making it that much harder to deal with these mental health struggles that I was, that most artists go through. Honestly, it's like, if we're honest about it, I think people are struggling mentally, and it's part of what draws us to the art, and so I just decided one day. I remember having my last Corona with my buddy at a bar in Woodinville, not far outside of Seattle. And yeah, I just decided. I made my mind up after I had that last beer, and I was like, you know what, I'm just done with this. And I woke up the next day, and I never have really wanted to drink since, which is incredible. Like, I know for a lot of people it's really difficult. It was a lot harder for me to quit smoking, honestly, because I used to love to smoke.
Yeah. Yeah. Plus,
But
smoking, the stakes are lower. I've
yeah,
I've gone on and off tobacco, and I'll like buy cigarettes, smoke some, and be like, I feel like shit. I hate this. Stop. Think it's going to help me again. Yeah, and I guess the stakes are lower.
totally. Yeah, but I've seen, from all of my friends and a lot of my friends who tour a bunch and used to drink and take a lot of drugs and party a lot, like, once they've made a decision to be sober, it's just like really been good for their life, and that's what I saw too. So, hopefully I'm sticking on that path, and that's the plan.
I hope so. That's great. Yeah, I myself have been sober for quite a long time now, and as soon as I put all that stuff down, I was able to grow up, learn to
Yeah,
regulate emotions, learn to talk to people like an adult, focus on creative pursuits, whereas sometimes I could do it and sometimes I couldn't based on what state I was in.
totally. Yeah, I hear you. And that's, I mean, to that point too, of what I was saying about art, it's like, it's one of the great things about making music and stuff, is just that it also helps you, like, getting sober is huge. And then being able to have more intention around, like, okay, I'm actually figuring out how I relate to life and what I've been through, and, figuring that stuff out through making music, which is awesome. I feel like it's just it's a healing force. I didn't really know that when I was young and just getting into punk bands and stuff, but like, throughout the different seasons of my life, it's become more and more clear to me that that's kind of what's really going on.
Yeah. Yeah. When I was young and discovered all this stuff, I wasn't really thinking of it as an outlet or a healing force or something positive or anything like that. It was just, this is what me and my friends do. But now it saves my life pretty much time and time again.
Hell yeah. I'm right there with you. I feel like when I'm having a bad week or things aren't going well now, it's just like I just put on my headphones and listen to a record and, go take a walk. And it's amazing, right? Like how these records can just take you to another place, and then you feel better. Or it's just, it's like, then I'm thinking about guitar tones, and I'm like, that makes me feel hopeful that there's something useful about this experience of being human and how hellish it can be.
Yeah, I think from talking to so many musicians, there has to be some kind of otherworldly force we're tapping into, right? Because I've heard you say it. I've heard you say it. When songs are great, it feels like I didn't write them. And
Totally.
I
Yeah.
love that feeling. Like I listen to something I love that I wrote and I'm like, when did I write that? How did I write that? Can I do it again? Where did it come from? I don't remember.
Right.
And you hear people say when they're writing, it just appears. So I think we have to be like a conduit to some degree. There's like some kind of crazy force happening because when you find a record you really love, it can transport you. I still seek that a lot.
Same. Yeah. I feel like that's what keeps me excited about wanting to write, and it's just never the same twice, and you kind of just have to get out of the way and let it come through, whatever's there. And it's always really difficult to get into that space, right? Like
Yeah,
your mind just wants to get in the way.
always. All the time. When you got sober, was it did you have to learn to write differently or perform differently or do things differently? Because when I got sober, I had never gone to band practice sober. I had never written sober. I had never played a show sober. There was a lot of stuff I had to learn to do, and it wasn't incredibly difficult, but there was things to learn. How about for you?
Same thing. I mean, it was really just a lot more nerve-wracking to play shows, because I used to drink a lot just to be able to get over stage fright. But after about 6 months, because I was touring really heavily at that time of my life, and after about 6 months, it felt kind of amazing to me how normal it was, like to do it, and how easy it was. Because I was like, oh, there was all these other problems that came along with drinking so much that I wasn't remembering the song, or other things that were happening, and then you realize how much chaos comes into your life just from getting drunk and everything that goes along with that, right? It's like it just makes everything harder than it needs to be, is what I start to realize. I was like, oh, this is, especially touring, I was like, oh, it's so much simpler. There's less drama. Everything's kind of cleaner and clearer. And then it can become more, for me at that point, just about the music, and about like that connection and what we're talking about, like, bringing that to people, and the community that is built around what you're doing, which has become super important to me, with what I've built with, my solo thing. But then now with Suzzallo, it's kind of like, yeah, that's one of the things I'm most excited about for this new project, is just, kind of bringing art to people and giving them something. It's heavily focused on grief, obviously, because of what my wife and I've been through, and what the album is about. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I'm excited about sharing, is really if you've been through deep grief or trauma or some, super hard experiences in your life, like art can really help. And having a creative practice, is just so important, I think, for mental health and for getting through those things. And so, that's kind of what I think Suzzallo has really made that, like, driven that message home for me.
Yeah, I'm curious about how the band comes together. So, a lot of the inspiration is from the passing of your child, Kienan,
Right.
and dealing with the grief. And I read that, after Kienan passed, you went back into some old music that you loved, Jawbreaker, Drive Like Jehu, Fugazi, and just threw yourself into that. So I'm curious about when it starts, how it starts, the band, because I've been through this. My family lost my older brother in 1998.
Oh, wow.
And it was the day before my 16th birthday. So, and I was like pretty young and behind everybody else anyway. So I remember he passed and there was all this chaos going on downstairs. But like the video game Resident Evil 2 just came out that day. And somehow, like, I guess my dad felt bad. So he took me to the mall to buy it and came back. And I was just like focused on the game. And there's like all this chaos and all this craziness happening downstairs, but I'm upstairs like focused on the game. So it's almost like your brain shuts itself down to like protect you, and you're focused on this one thing. And it's happened to me with other areas too. So what happened with you? And then how do you like start to move forward to get the idea for the band?
Yeah, that's a great metaphor for this. Actually, that's so cool that you had Resident Evil to focus on. Because I feel like you do in those situations in life. You need something to like, just like channel all that into. And for me, that was music, and I just it took about 6 months. From so Keenan passed. It was in a car accident in December of 2021, and they were 22 years old at the time. So this is, I guess, over 3 years now. And yeah, and so at that time, our lives were just completely shattered. If you lived through this, and how old was your brother?
He was 17. He was in his senior year of high school, and I was just turning
Okay.
16.
Wow. Oh, no way. So you're just 1 year younger. Wow. Yeah, so you must have seen how that can just shatter a family. And yeah, and so that's what we were experiencing. And I basically, for the first 6 months, I wasn't really able to write any music. I was just pretty like not functioning well. Not really able to do much. And so I had the idea for Suzzallo. I started writing songs, yeah, about 6 months after that. And it was like, it was just like a light in the darkness. It was like something I could really focus on, and that made me feel a lot better. And so, yeah, I wrote most of the songs for the record in like a 2-week period. And then I had one, and then it was like maybe like a month later, I had another 2-week period where I just basically lived at my rehearsal studio, and I just, barely ate, drank, slept. Like I was just like really focused on songwriting, and I was crying all the time, and I was like basically just really focused on getting these songs and everything I was going through out. And it was like basically I just needed a new channel for that. And so that's how the band was born, because I didn't really relate to my solo stuff at that time. I was having a really hard time even like looking at my acoustic guitar, because it just sort of made me sick to my stomach. I needed something that was like way more cathartic, just more volume, more noise. Like I wanted the most distortion you could ever imagine. Like that, those were the sounds I was drawn to, and that made me feel good. That's probably like Resident Evil for you. It's like, oh, I just want to go to this like kind of extreme gaming experience.
Yeah,
Um,
it's like at that time. Now it was Resident Evil 2, which just released. At that time, there were not a lot of games like that. Like
yeah,
survival horror was new, and being able to play a character in a zombie-ridden world, that was
yeah.
like brand new. So it was perfect for a 16-year-old me. Like, wow, okay,
Yeah,
let's
it was
tune
pretty
out.
revolutionary at the time, right?
Right. But yeah, I love the influences you mentioned for Suzzallo, and just the music. I love it. Jawbreaker, huge for me. It reminded me of Far a lot. Drive Like Jehu, I love all that good mid to late '90s stuff, and then the loud guitar, and then they'll just be like this guttural scream at the end of a song, and I'm like, yes, this is the stuff I love. This is
I love it, Keith. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, it's for me, it was really just kind of like this raw, cathartic experience of like getting all this music out, and that's what I love about this record when I look back at it now, because a lot of the things I've done, other solo albums or whatever throughout my life making records has been like more, you think about it more, or you're kind of in your head while you're working on it. But there was really none of that. It was just like, it was like this very raw kind of experience of just capturing these stories and my experience of grief, and what I was going through. And so, yeah, it's just, I'm super grateful that I had the ability to play music, in that moment, so that I could kind of use that as a way to make sense out of the absolute madness and chaos, as you said, of like, when you lose a child in a family, it's just, the word that kept coming back to me is shattering, and that word shows up on the record several times too. But it's like, that's kind of what that experience feels like. And my identity was shattered is how I felt too, because all the things I related to, like I had just finished an acoustic album. You know, it was kind of like more like bedroom folk, like really stripped down songs that were mostly just acoustic guitar and vocal, maybe a little electric guitar or something, you know, but it was like, that's where I was at as an artist right then. And then, you know, Keenan passed and it was like, all that went away. I needed something new, you know, and I feel like Suzzallo, it was just kind of born out of that. And I was also wanting to play with Rudy, who played with me in Waxwing. He plays drums in Suzzallo now. And Steve Bunnell plays bass, who used to be in a band called Schoolyard Heroes. And those guys are friends of mine, you know? And so I was kind of in this pretty vulnerable place and I needed people near me that I felt like I could trust and who I felt safe with, you know? And so that also kind of really helped kind of bond us together at that time. And it's just, it became like as you know, when you're in a band, it becomes something more than you know, it's like, there's this chemistry with those guys. And when we're in that room and it's like a portal opens up to another world and we're just like playing the songs and to me, it's so magical. And I just love that experience. So I feel like Suzzallo is something totally new for me, even though, you know, I've been in bands and stuff, but I really love what we're doing with this project musically. For me, super satisfying.
Yeah, I love it. How long had it been since you had worked in a band setting like that?
Pretty long time. I think Waxwing was the last real band I was in, and that broke up in I want to say
2005.
Yeah, 2005. Yeah, mid 2000s, kind of around then. So, gosh, I don't know how many years is that.
Wait,
getting old.
like 10? Wait, 15? Wait, no, 20. 20. It was 20 years ago. Okay. I'm bad at math.
We can do math. So 20 years. Jesus, man, it's been a long time. But it's crazy how much fun it is and I really missed it. And even in the last, 5 years or so, I had been reaching out to Rudy and being like, hey, we should try to play together, and it just never quite worked out for our schedules. And it takes a lot of energy, to form a band and start working with people in a consistent way. And but yeah, this was the catalyst for that. And so I'm just really grateful that, these guys are down to be playing music right now.
That's great that you had support from them and somewhere to focus all of your energy, right? Because that's what has saved me in more recent years with a lot of different changes and stuff. Knowing that band practice is going to happen every week. I've done some theater when there wasn't a band, there was like a show to focus on, or like an acting class, or
yes.
This podcast became a weekly thing during COVID. So just having the show to fall back on every week when there's absolutely nothing else, I think that, well, for me, the creative pursuits are life-saving. How about for you?
Yeah, I feel the same way. I love what you've built with the podcast, actually, because I was just looking through your episodes, and it's great, man. It looks really good.
We got lucky. People before anyone knew us, I would just cold call people on Instagram and be like, "Will you come on?" And they said yes. And then we partnered with a record label, and that really helped kick things up. So that was good.
Cool. Are you still doing it really consistently now? Is it
every single week? But much like you, looking at the acoustic guitar and just feeling sick. Lately I look at the podcast and I think I can't do this anymore because.
Yeah, I guess it reaches that point where you can burn out. So maybe there's a break for you at some point in the future.
I'm gonna take a break. Take a break. It's not gonna go away, everybody. Don't worry. But I will be taking some kind of break. Maybe like 2 a month instead of 4 or 5. I don't know. We'll see.
I support it, man. Yeah.
So when you're writing for Suzzallo, do you have all the songs done and you bring it to the other guys? Are we working on stuff in a practice space together? Like how is it coming together?
Yeah, that's pretty close to how it's happened for this record. I'd usually have a mostly complete song idea and I'd bring it to them and we might make structural changes. And those guys are just really easy to work with, like super flexible, great sounding board, like a lot of creative ideas. And so the songs did kind of morph and change as we worked on them together. And yes, a couple of them, I think River, probably the first track on the record, was the one that we were most uh, collaborative with. Like after I brought the idea in, it shifted quite a bit, but it happened really quickly. I think I wrote that song in a day, and then I brought the idea into those guys a few days later, and that was actually the last song I wrote for the record too. So it was when we went to record it, it was super fresh. It was like everybody was very excited about the idea, and we were still kind of tweaking things right when we got in the studio. So it was still like kind of forming, like where things would happen. And Steve came up with this idea of having the music drop out, and then there's this like just a bass line for I think it's like after the second chorus. There's like a little bridge solo thing, and then it drops out, and there's just the bass, and then it just big old dive bomb comes back in. So that's one of my favorite parts on the record too. And yeah, so it's fun to be in that setting that's a little more collaborative with ideas like that too. Which for me is different. Like I haven't really collaborated with anyone in years, or a very long time. Yeah, and I got to work with Ben Gibbard on a few songs on this record too, from Death Cab, and he added so much to those songs as well. So yeah, it's fun to work with old friends and just kind of, be back in that space, because I was in such a vulnerable space creatively, mentally, emotionally. That it was great to be surrounded with them and that energy. And then also working with John Goodmanson. I mean, what a legendary producer, like he's made so many amazing albums, and I just have to say thanks to him, because he held this space for me to be able to explore with the record. And I've had a lot of experiences, some of them really tough with producers. I think all of us have, but sometimes can become a real power struggle. And there was none of that. It was very like supportive creatively for me to just kind of explore ideas. And he's such a genius. I mean, so good at what he does, at being able to capture what we were going for was this really like 90s sound. I wanted this to sound like hi-fi 90s record, because that's what I was listening to a lot. And I just love the way those records sounded back then. And I realized when we tried to start demoing stuff, how difficult it really is to make records sound that good, because I was trying to do it on my own. Like I produced and mixed my last solo album, and it's mostly acoustic, like I said, and that's just a different ballgame entirely than trying to make a rock record. When it comes to a drum kit and, balancing that with the bass and then guitar tones and everything else that was happening, I was just like way out of my league, like over my head. We we went into a couple different studios to try to capture stuff, and I just was like totally bummed on how it was coming out. So we got John involved and went to Robert Lang, which is also, legendary studio here in Seattle, where so many great records have been made. And Cody from my little brother from the Blood Brothers actually put me in touch with John, because they had made Crimes and their last album, Young Machetes, in that room. And I thought they sounded amazing. And I'm a big fan of John's work and the other records he's made. So was really happy he was available to work on it.
Yeah, I saw that he was producer for the Blood Brothers too, but I didn't know your actual brother was in that band.
Yeah, that's my little brother Cody. What's funny? Rudy's little brother's in that band too and plays drums. So
Oh, really?
yeah. So we were talking about it, and they actually met through us, because I think that's what Rudy said the other day. Is he was talking to Mark, and Mark plays drums in the Blood Brothers, and Cody, my little brother, plays guitar. And when we formed Waxwing and our high school band called Lying on Loop before that, which Rudy played drums in, I was over there at their house, and we used to go there to practice all the time in their parents' garage. And I think Rudy said that's where Mark and Cody met, and then they started playing together. and joined up with Johnny and Jordan and the rest of those guys. And it's a small world.
That's was that a trip for you to watch? They went pretty far, and then the reunion recently, that was huge.
Yeah, it was amazing. I'm super proud of my brother Cody. Like he also played guitar in Waxwing, when Blood Brothers got signed to V2, I guess that was around the time I feel like Waxwing started to die down, because he was just like super busy with that. And I think this was around 2002, 2003 when I put out Suicide Medicine. I think that was my third solo album, because I remember that's really when the split happened, and he was way more focused on Blood Brothers. We weren't really doing Waxwing as much, and and I was doing the solo thing a bunch. But yeah, it's kind of funny because two brothers in both projects.
It happens pretty often. It's a band I toured with a lot has two brothers in it. Who else? Chevelle, I think that's two brothers. Yeah. It's it happens fairly often,
And then there's Mike Kinsella and Tim, right?
Oh, right, them too. Yeah.
Yeah, those guys have been a big part of the Chicago scene forever.
Big time. Transitioning to doing the solo career for as long as you did, and as long as you still are. Well, first, I guess you're living the dream, right? Because like everyone, well, not everyone, but people try to go solo a lot, but they don't make like a career out of it usually. Usually it's like an album or two, and then, I have to go back to the band and do that thing. Or are you happy that it just worked out so you could just do the solo thing?
I was, yeah. I'm really grateful that I had, enough success to do that and really kind of pursue it artistically until I had kind of gotten what I was looking for out of it, And I'm not saying I'm not going to do it anymore. I probably will. I might at some point, go back. I probably will go and make another solo album at some point, but I just don't feel that called to it right this second. To like, if I'm writing anything, it's very much focused in this new channel that I'm really excited about, because I'm looking forward to working on LP2 with Suzzallo, because I'm already starting. I have a few ideas. I'm starting to write that. This one's not even out, but I mean, how it is. It takes so long from the time you write something to record it to release it. It's like, I mean, I've been working on this album with Suzzallo for 3 years, so it's just crazy. I've felt pretty impatient. I've like really wanted to speed up the process, but at the same time, I'm glad I didn't, because the quality definitely would have suffered for what I was trying to do with it. I really wanted the record to sound as good as it does. And that's the biggest part of what slowed it down, because it's harder to do that than I realized,
It really is. I just went through all that recently. I'm in a new band who put out our debut EP, and it was like, well, it was really a 5-year process if you want to think about it, but I almost don't want to admit that because I'm like, it's just too long and I don't want to do that again. But
I know,
between writing and recording and sorting everything out with the labels and then waiting a year for it to come out, you go through phases. It's like, I hate this, I love it, I hate it again, I love it. And then maybe months of forgetting it even exists because we're waiting for it to come out. And then it's finally out and it's like, okay. And you get a 10-second hit and you're like, all right, on to the next thing.
Right. We did it.
Yeah.
I'm excited to play some shows with these songs too. Like once the record's finally here. And
that's what I was going to ask about. Are we going to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. I got 3 shows that are on sale right now in the Northwest in May. So the record comes out Friday, May 2nd. And then on the 9th, we're playing in Tacoma at Real Art. And then the next night we go up to Bellingham at the Shakedown. And then the following weekend, we're playing on May 17th in Seattle at the Crocodile. Actually, it's at Madame Lou's, which is the smaller room in the Crocodile.
Nice. What's your relationship with touring these days? Would you do a whole US thing again? Do you want to? Is there anything like that in the works?
Yeah, we're working on it for Suzzallo. Actually, it's a little tricky with everybody's schedule and just getting getting that to happen, mostly for Rudy because he's got young kids and a job, and but he also has some flexibility and has committed some time to it. So we're working on something for the fall. Hopefully, that will come together, and yeah. So I'm hoping that September, October timeframe will have more shows up on sale and some kind of tour. Probably start on the West Coast, of the U.S. and but yeah, wish me luck. Hopefully that comes together. I really want to go out and play with this band because I think we have a really great live show. It's super exciting, super high energy, and that's something I always wanted to do. That was a dream of mine with Waxwing because this is really kind of picking up where that left off for me. But it is a totally new chapter as well. I think it's, sonically it's very different, and it's kind of just more informed by all I've been through as a solo artist, and it's kind of coming through that filter, but with the same kind of volume and intensity as what I had, with Waxwing. So, yeah, I just think it's better, and I'm excited to like bring the songs to people. Yeah. So hopefully people can see a show and yeah, I definitely want to get on the road with this band. So hopefully it can happen.
Yes, I need to see it. Everybody does.
Yeah, hopefully we'll make it out to Brooklyn.
I hope so. How did you end up in Seattle? I know you grew up in Texas, in Dallas, around outside of Dallas. How did you actually end up in Seattle?
Well, so yeah, my parents got divorced when I was, I want to say 12 years old. And so that was the initial catalyst. My mom remarried, and yeah, like a tornado hit our house in this small town in Texas where we lived. And, my parents were already kind of going through a divorce. And so that just kind of made it happen. And we moved to Houston for a year, and then up to Seattle when my mom remarried my stepdad, who worked for Boeing. So he's an aerospace engineer and lived up here in the Northwest. So we took the trip up, from Texas, and yeah, so that's pretty much how I ended up here. And then it was really hard at first. I had a thick Texas accent, I used to talk like that, and got made fun of a lot. And like, yeah, it was just like an artistic kid who was into music, and that's another reason why music became like super important to me, because I spent all my time writing songs and working on learning to play guitar. And yeah, because when you move in ninth grade, or yeah, I guess it was 10th grade when I came to Seattle, that's a terrible time to move. You don't have any friends, and it's like the most socially awkward time of your entire life. And yeah, so I just kind of sunk everything into music at that time.
Did you make friends? Did you find a community? And was it within music? Yeah, I had a really hard time. I grew up in, I graduated high school in 2000, but in that era, if you were into art, music, comic books, video game, I got made fun of for everything. You were just a freak. It was like kind of rich jocks versus everybody else in that time. So, if I was listening to music or doing anything artistic, you were weird, or you were other words I won't repeat here. Like, was it like that for you?
Yeah, kind of. But my wife got it way worse than me, actually. She went to a high school here where like bullying was really bad. And she, I think she eventually left that school and went to an alternative school because she was always artistic. She's an amazing painter now, actually. But yeah, April Votolato, if you ever, her abstract paintings are incredible. Like her career's kind of taken off with it now. But yeah, I mean, I was kind of like in between worlds. I was definitely weird because I moved up from Texas and I didn't know anyone, and but I also played sports and stuff because I grew up in rural Texas, and there wasn't a lot of other kids on the sports team, so you could actually make the team and play, and and so but when I got up here into a bigger school, it was less interesting to me. And I started, by like junior year, because I was way more into music, and I stopped playing sports and just, did art and music. And I didn't get picked on too much, but I was just kind of, I was pretty isolated. just kind of kept to myself a lot. But my wife actually went to high school with, she went to high school with the guys from Jeremiah from Modest Mouse, went there. And then some of the guys, Dan Gallucci, who was also in Modest Mouse for a while, but who played in Murder City Devils. I think he still plays in Murder City. And then, she was friends with the guys from Sunny Day Real Estate. And it was like, that time in Seattle, it was such
that crew. Yeah.
Yeah. There was a lot of like people that went on to be in really famous bands, in this very small class, that she was in. And so, but she told me stories of like, people would just get hit in the face with like, like a notebook and pushed downstairs just for, having a band shirt or looking a little different, cause it was brutal, and that was kind of like right at the time when I guess grunge was happening in Seattle, but those guys, and Kurt Cobain talked about all that too. It was like really difficult to be different at all, know?
Yep. That's how it was for me. How did you discover, let's say, punk music as a coverall term? Like, did you start going to local shows? What kind of bands grabbed you? Like, what were you into?
Yeah, my entry point to it was, definitely local punk shows and hardcore shows. And I went to see Fugazi. I feel like that was one of the early, entry points for me because I got there. I think In on the Kill Taker had come out, but I actually was, I think Repeater maybe was the first one I listened to, and then 13 Songs. But I went to see Fugazi, and that really, I think for most people at that time, if you were lucky enough to see that band, it changed your life, because you felt they built a community, and it was like, you just felt the energy and that you were a part of something. And I loved how DIY it was, and like a sense of ethics, punk rock ethics that was with it too. I was super drawn to that. And then Jawbreaker was huge because they would come through Seattle and play this little local teen center that I actually worked on or worked at. And I was, a teen who was there, and then I got a job there as a teen counselor too. So, and I would run sound for bands at shows that happened there. But it was like a legendary place in Seattle, and a lot of all ages shows happening. So I'd go there, and then I'd go to the Velvet Elvis. There was another place called Ground Zero, like some places in Seattle and some kind of on the east side. But yeah, that's how it started for me. And I was just going to shows all the time. I mean, if there was any show, I didn't even care who it was. I was just going to the shows, So I got to know like everybody in the local music scene, and, was helping organize shows. I was playing in 3 bands, or I was doing the solo thing, Waxwing, and I played drums in another band. And I was just like really involved with it all when I was in college. And yeah, the Velvet Elvis was probably where I saw I saw Built to Spill there. I saw the Foo Fighters first show actually. And I saw Sunny Day a bunch of times in Seattle, and it was just like really an exciting time. There was like such a vibrant scene and so many things going on. So I'm grateful I was alive and here at that time, and, got to start playing in bands then.
Right. So you're in college, you're already doing everything. You're in Waxwing, you're playing solo, you're in multiple bands, you're doing it.
Yeah, I'm sleeping like 3 hours a night, Keith. I'm like, I don't know how I did it. When I look back at it now, I was making like 1 to 2 albums a year. And I don't know if you remember this, like everything happened faster back then too. I feel like, because you would just go in and you didn't have computers. So you just would record the record and it would happen in like 3 to 5 days. I mean, I'm sure people were spending more time on it, but I wasn't. We didn't have any money, and we were you'd go in and just track it and it was done. And I very much miss that, especially now as I'm waiting, 3 years for this record to come out. I don't know. I hope that LP2 for Suzzallo, Without Sacrificing Quality, can be kind of reaction to that and go back to, making something quicker, and just because there's this urgency to it, especially this style of music. Like you want to capture it and keep it flowing and get it out to people so that it doesn't feel stale by the time you're actually doing it,
Right. That's the way it worked back then. It's like we have $2,000 and 3 days. Whatever happens, happens. That's it.
Totally. There's no remixing. That's what happened.
So, Waxwing, you were in this band for a while. How did you tour a lot? Did we tour all across the US? Like, how far did you get out?
We didn't tour much. I think it's part of why that band wasn't more well known. I feel like it was very well known in Seattle, and we had a really great live show, and we sold out lots of shows, and we definitely were up and coming, but we didn't tour much. And I think that had to do with a few different things, like people's schedules, the Blood Brothers happening. I think, who knows? I mean, for whatever reason, we got out to the East Coast. I don't think we made it all the way to the East Coast, though. We made it like through the Midwest, and I think the furthest we ever got out east was like Chicago, I think, because I know we played with the guys from Small Brown Bike. Those were friends of ours, and then the Casket Lottery from Kansas City, and we did shows with those guys on the West Coast, and then played a few shows it was in the Midwest with Small Brown Bike. But we toured the West Coast a few times with Waxwing, shows that I'd set up myself, just like, Book Your Own Life, like calling friends and people I knew through the punk rock scene in Seattle, and putting together very shoddy tours where like half the shows would happen and half wouldn't. It was kind of a lot of that, like just trying to get something going. So I think by the time I was actually doing any real touring, it was mostly for the solo thing, because I had put more of my eggs in that basket and was getting some attention nationally for some of those songs, and got offered a few like national tours, and it kind of went in that direction. But I was always sad that we didn't do more with Waxwing because it was so fun. And maybe we're talking about maybe doing a reunion show or something.
That's what I was going to say. Did the reunion hype build up yet? We can bring it back.
I'd love to see that. But, our bass player, Andrew, moved to the UK. So he lives over there now, which makes it difficult. And then Cody moved to LA. So, just getting everybody together is tough. And also I'm kind of getting what I was looking for with that expression through Suzzallo, and I'm so excited about Suzzallo and just going out and promoting the new record. So I think the Waxwing thing will probably wait, and we'll see, if things cool off with Suzzallo at all for me, then, maybe there's time for it.
How did you transition to solo? Did you just start going out there with an acoustic guitar and booking your own shows? And like, what did you do?
Yeah, it happened really organically because I was already playing shows around at the same time as all the Waxwing stuff was happening in Seattle. I just kind of, when I was younger, I mean, I was super prolific, and I wrote all the time, and I had so many songs coming out that I just would put them in piles. It was like, oh, this is louder. Goes with Waxwing. Okay, these are solo songs. And that's a quiet idea. And so it was kind of happening at the same time around 98, 99. I think that's when I started putting out solo records. And so I started just playing shows around town at that same time. And depending, I was so connected and dialed into that scene that people would ask, oh, do you want to do this show? I played with, Damien Gerardo a lot, or Dave Bazan from Pedro the Lion. Waxwing played shows with Death Cab, and it was kind of like Juno and Yaphet Kotto and other bands that would come through town. I think we played with Hot Water Music, actually. I think you just talked to Chuck not too long ago, right?
Fairly recently, yeah.
Yeah. So we were just part of that scene, and it was easy, because I realized that now, and I took it for granted how connected I was. Because when I started trying to do Suzzallo, I was just realized, oh, I'm kind of not as connected to that community. And since then I've started to become more so. And I feel like it's starting to get easier now. Like we're getting lots of show offers, and we're going to be opening for Minus the Bear in another reunion thing happening. Speaking of, those guys are excited because people are really responding well to their, tickets are on sale. They're doing like 2 or 3 nights in most of the major cities. And Yeah, so those are old friends of mine.
What was the town outside of Seattle you mentioned? I think Suzzallo's playing there.
Oh, in Tacoma.
Yeah,
Or
I was
Bellingham.
wondering when you mentioned Tacoma. When you mentioned Tacoma, I was like, I wonder if he knows Jake, because I've had Jake on the show before.
Oh, nice.
I think he lives there, if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken.
he does. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's gonna come with his wife. Hopefully, his kids. It's an all ages show, so I think he's gonna come to the show. And we're talking about maybe having him play on a few songs. So we'll see.
No, that would be cool.
Yeah, I don't know if he'll have time with everything going on, but we've wanted to do that for a long time. And I've toured with Minus the Bear, and he recorded my first solo album actually.
Oh, really?
In the basement of the punk house he lived in, and yeah, that's where we played with Hot Water Music actually, because we were at a show in Tacoma a few weeks ago, and we were laughing about how he used to get calls from all over the country and just pick it up and like book shows for punk bands. And yeah, one time he broke his thumb and asked me to play guitar for him. And so he was just singing in his band at the time. I'm pretty sure that was State Route 522, which was his band, way before Minus the Bear, but they were great Seattle band. But yeah, just a lot of fun memories. We've been connected forever, and he recorded the first Waxwing 7-inch as well.
Oh, wow. I didn't know he recorded too.
Yeah, he was a really great engineer. He recorded a ton of bands in Seattle at that time. But he was also a great guitar player, songwriter. So he was in bands, and that kind of took off for him. I think he did have a studio in his basement that was pretty great. But yeah, I think he probably would have gone on to produce records and stuff, but his bands became famous. So there you
go. They went on quite a ride. I still remember them making a very big splash in 2002, was it? Yeah. Somewhere around there when they really started breaking. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I'm excited to see them again. It's been a long time. I can't wait. We're going to play with them at the Showbox in Seattle. Yeah, it should be fun because we haven't done many shows at all. So it'll be really fun to be on that stage.
How many have you done? Like with Suzzallo?
We've done a few kind of private or like unannounced secret show type things, but we've really only played one official show in Seattle. And yeah, there was a lot of hype build up around it because it took so long to kind of get things set up. And yeah, the first show was sold out. So it was great. It was in like a 300 cap room. This place called Baba Yaga. It's a small rock club in Pioneer Square, actually on the same block that the Velvet Elvis was on, that club I mentioned that was pretty legendary in Seattle. But yeah, Baba Yaga is great. Really cool new rock club. And yeah, so this last weekend, we drove down to Portland and played there for the first time. We got offered to open a podcast, which, have you heard of the Flightless Birds?
No.
Podcast? Yeah, it's really cool. I hadn't heard of it either, but they somehow were a fan of Suzzallo. They followed us on Instagram or something and found out about the band, like heard a couple of our singles that have come out. And so they offered us to come play. And it was great. It was at the Revolution Hall, which is like a 850 capacity room and pretty close to sold out. Like it was, so we were playing, all of a sudden just in front of like 800 plus people. And it was great. It was like, we're living the dream, man.
Is that nerve-wracking for you at all? Because, all right, I'm in a new band. Our second show was at Bowery Ballroom here in New York City, which is a pretty big venue because our friend's band reunited after 20 years and there was some good support and we got to jump on in the very front. But I was nervous because it was my first time fronting a band and the stage was really high. And I was just really nervous. And it was our second show ever. Do you get like that? Do you feel like that still?
A little bit, but I've played so many shows now in my life, and Rudy has too. He's toured a bunch, and Steve too. Actually, these guys they're like vets, So so we felt pretty comfortable with it. I see this band being on bigger stages. I think that's going to happen. There's a lot of things lining up right now that it's kind of moving in that direction. So I felt pretty comfortable, to be honest. I was like, oh, this feels great. This feels like where I want to be with this. Whereas with my solo thing, I was actually pretty uncomfortable with it, which is weird. But I never really saw it that way. I always kind of saw the Rocky thing as like, oh, I mostly play living rooms. I'm mostly playing to like 30 or 50 people at a time in this very intimate setting, and that's what felt right for that project, and
Is
so
that
it was.
is that a typical solo show for you, the living room thing?
Yeah, I think I pretty much quit playing in the venues, over the last 5-10 years. It'll happen on a one-off here and there, but and in Seattle, I'll do a big club show just because I can play a bigger venue here, but like in a lot of the other places, I didn't want to be playing in a bar where people just would be talking and I'm trying to play a quiet song. It's like it's really frustrating. So for me, it's super liberating and exciting to just the volume of Suzzallo. It's like now I feel free. I can get on the stage and just fucking turn it up. Like I don't have to worry about anybody talking. What I was going to ask though, what's your band called?
It's called Memory Entry.
Memory Entry. Okay, cool. I gotta check it out.
Imagine
What award-
Suzzallo, but tuned to drop C and me screaming my head off instead of like singing.
Hell yeah, dude! I really want to hear it. I hope maybe we could play together or something. If you feel like the music would align.
I would love to, and I think it would. And also, I'm committed to doing mixed bill shows because I want to bring back that late 90s, mid to late 90s. You'd have like a hardcore band and an alt band and I don't know, a random ska band or whatever. But
Totally.
it's not announced yet, but we have a great show in July with 2 post-rock bands. So that'll be cool. But then I'm imagining like a Memory Entry, Suzzallo, and then we'll get like an emo band, right?
Okay.
Because
Hell yeah.
and then we'll have like every bass covered.
I love it, man. Let's make it happen. What venue do you like to play in Brooklyn or in New York?
Anyone we can.
Okay, good.
we've only played four shows so far, and we've played a big club, the back of a bar in the East Village, TVI here in Queens, which is like a nice smaller venue, and then Windjammer, which is a bar that has a nice venue in the back. So
Cool.
yeah. So
And then how was the show at Bowery? Did you guys have fun?
yes, it was great. I was really nervous. I just didn't want to blow it, and I didn't. And there wasn't a ton of people there because it was a 4-band bill, and we opened up. But I didn't care. I didn't care about that. In fact, I was like, when we started playing, I think people told me it was more, but I only saw like 20 people, and I was like, okay, I'm not that nervous. The room isn't like full. Because it's like a 500 cap room or so. I don't know. You can fit a lot of people in there. So I was like, okay,
Wow.
we can just do it. We'll be fine.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's like you're relieved that
Yeah.
there's not that many people because you're just starting out and like, no, I get it. I felt that way for sure.
Yeah.
But that's great that you guys are playing, and yeah, I wish you good luck with it.
Thank you. Because, yeah, and if you're ever out in the East Coast and you need an opener or help or anything, hit me up. We'll talk.
You got to do it. Send me a link if you can through James. I want to hear it. I really
Yeah, I'll
want to hear
send you
the
my email too. Yeah. So with the solo shows, so you'll just do the living room gigs now. Do you email people ahead of time to say like, this is what I need, and make sure it's not like some crazy person's house where weird stuff is going to happen? Like, what's the process?
Make sure you don't get turned into a skin suit,
Because I see like Matt Talbot does solo shows, and he'll send out like in his emails he'll send out like what he needs, and there's kind of like requirements, and I imagine he has somebody that does some like setup on the back end. Like, how does it work for you?
Yeah, it's the same thing. Like I organize kind of a routing usually, and I'll post that on my social media and just say, okay, does anybody want to host me in these cities around this time? And then we get like submissions through my website, and then they'll just send over like a picture and description of how many people they think will fit in their living room, and then we just kind of take the different submissions from all the cities and hopefully put together a routing that's similar to what I was hoping to do. And it's awesome. I mean, it's really it's amazing, these people just kind of who will open their home for that, and allow this to happen there. And it's always, my fans are amazing. They're always really super respectful, and it's just like just always been a really good time, kind of super life affirming to just be able to show up there and then play for people in a setting where people are excited to listen to you play soft songs, and there's not this party element to it. It's very focused on the songs and the art. And yeah, but it does, I've heard from people, it also builds community too. And like people meet each other through there. And so many times people told me, oh, I met my wife or I met my husband at your show. And, I think that's the other kind of indirect consequence of music and shows and stuff is like, it's a way for people to connect, there's not that many opportunities for that in our world anymore. So I love that part of that too. And hearing those kind of stories are great. But I think for the living room thing, it's just been a good way for me to kind of strip everything else away and still enjoy playing solo music and acoustic music for people. So that's probably how I'll do it again.
Yeah, that's the way, because then everyone who shows up there, they're there for that. They know what they're getting into. It's not some loud bar where everybody has to shush somebody or there's some weird scene. So I mean, it's probably a chill time every time, right?
It is. It's always great. I've done thousands of them. No exaggeration now over the years. And actually Dave Bazan from Pedro the Lion's the one who initially got me into it, because he called me one day. I was like, you should try this. It's kind of it was a new thing at that time. Not many people were doing it. But yeah, I just took off with that idea and ran, because it made touring way more enjoyable for me. And then, yeah, but I'm actually really excited to get back to the rock clubs now with Suzzallo, because it's a totally different experience, right? I mean, and I just think that's more appropriate for that venue. Like if you have a loud band, then those shows are just as fun in a totally different way, because maybe more fun, because there's all this energy.
That's the only place because I really let it out when we play. The music is aggressive. There's melody too, but that's like the only place I can do that. You know what I mean? Like go that crazy. That's totally. So the band setting, that's the place to do it. It must be very cathartic for you to play these songs. I mean, is it talk about some of the feelings, because we know the subject matter and we know what preceded it leading to the band, but are you like a mess sometimes after playing the songs? How is it for you?
So sometimes, yeah, it's pretty emotional. It's pretty heavy subject matter. But the interesting thing is that, and when I listen to the record now, I feel this too. It's strange, because I feel like the record is also very comforting and soothing, at the same time, which was really weird, because if you think about this, art was created from this really hard, dark experience and a lot of grief and trauma. But yeah, I'm just having a lot of fun too, and I'm also really excited. I think there's a lot of light in it. There's a lot of like, I think hope and catharsis, but just the joy of playing rock music and screaming and singing, at the top of my lungs. And it's really freeing. And I kind of want that to be part of the band, and wherever it goes from here, that's super important to me, that there's this kind of, this high energy fun that's happening that is there with rock music and punk rock music, especially, that, it's like the early Jawbreaker shows I went to. And there's this through line for me with those bands that I'm trying to carry forward to bring that experience to people. 'Cause there's nothing like it. For me as a young kid, I was so fucked up, and I was just in every way, things were kind of not going well in my life. And, it was kind of stacked against me, making it, growing up poor. And I just had a lot of mental health troubles, when I was a kid, and my dad was in a gang, and I was definitely, really trying to find my way. And, so punk rock helped me do that. And I feel like being able to create that kind of environment where other people can find, some energy and a community they can relate to, and something that's fun and life affirming and cathartic. That's what I'm trying to do with this band, So I'm really looking forward to hopefully getting out and touring more with it.
Yeah, it's the best. It's still a lot of fun, and that's why I do it. And it helps me a lot too with Well, time and time again, I come back to this scene, this music, those friends, the best friends I made when I was 16. And, I go out and look for something else. And time again, I end up back here. And this is,
Yeah.
I'm like, this is where it's at. This is what
Yeah.
it is. But
It feels like coming home back to that music and those bands. I feel the same way.
always, always. Yeah, I've read that you've dealt with depression and, you've dealt with different things growing up. What does that look like for you now? What do you do to deal with those types of things? And do you still deal with it?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's kind of like, for me, I realize it's not something that ever goes away. It's not something you cure. If you have that, I mean, at least for me, I haven't experienced, I think there's seasons that are better than others, and I have lots of tools now that help me cope with depression and anxiety and mental health struggles. Suicidal ideation. These are just things that I deal with, and I probably always will to some degree. But I meditate a lot now. I've gotten pretty into meditation, and it's like a positive addiction. I do that pretty much every day. Or at least I was more consistent in my practice. I started doing that in 2008, and that definitely changed my life for the better. And and then I quit drinking in 2011. That's around the time I was trying to clean up my life, and or else I'm sure I just would have gone off into a ditch and lost my marriage and my career and everything. So yeah, so that I think sobriety and then meditation, and then I try to exercise too, because I think for me I have a lot of kinetic energy and like mental voices going on, and I have just a lot of energy, and so that has to either get put into movement and running, which I like to do. Not as seriously as a lot of other indie rockers, but but I still run and exercise, and that helps. And then writing music. I mean, I feel like that's like the main way, honestly, for me, that I'm able to deal with the madness of just being human. It's if you're sensitive and you're an artist, it's just, I feel like you're picking up more information, and so it can just really exhausting and overwhelming. And so I'm a lot of times just struggling with that, and I think a lot of people are, and so, yeah, it's just like having this toolbox of things that you can go to cope with it. And then also being able to put boundaries in place. Like when I was younger, I didn't know how to say no to stuff, or just keep pushing past the boundary of my own nervous system, until I'm like completely collapsed. But yeah, it's being able to, even like what you said with your shows, like being able to recognize, okay, if I'm feeling burned out, I'm going to pull back a little bit, and that's totally okay. Because I know all the people in your community who benefit from what you do and, support you would rather you be inspired about what you're doing. Right.
Right. Exactly.
So I'm hoping the same for me. And like, if I need to pump the brakes and, not go as hard on something these days, I try to do that. But it's a work in progress, I mean, it's always, every day or week is different. And yeah, it's an up and down struggle, right?
Right. Well, it sounds like I have a pretty similar toolbox to you. I started running last year. I'm not doing marathons. I'll do 2 miles at the most.
Good.
In fact, I cut back because I was like losing too much weight and I didn't want to, but physical fitness has been a game changer. I finally decided to give it a try.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that for you, Keith. That's awesome. Yeah. I want to do better with it, because I feel my best. I don't know about you. I always feel my best when I've worked out and stuff, like, because it helps to get rid of that depression energy that's so stagnant. But it's tough, like, and then not getting injured as you try to like always. So I think it's smart that you're only doing a couple of miles at a time. That's mostly what I'm doing too. I'm not. I mean, I'd like to run further at some point, but I don't want to. The main thing is I just want to, be able to sleep at night and be healthy enough to just keep playing in a band.
That's it. I want us to be able to get all of our equipment out of the practice space to the show and back home without feeling like I'm going to drop dead. That's all I want.
Totally.
Yeah. Oh, and to look like a little toned, which I'm getting there. So it's that's
Good
it.
luck. Yeah. We need endurance, right? If you're going to get on stage and scream and stuff, you gotta not get winded.
That's why I started doing this, because I was like, I'm not going to make it through a set. So that's That's the thing that finally made me do it.
Nice. Do you listen to a lot of music when you run and stuff too?
Nope. I bring my door key with me and that's it. And then I run around the block. I run in a giant circle twice because I know how far a mile is. And I have a very overactive mind. So I just kind of zone out and I'll like whisper to myself, don't think. Because I'll be like, I'm not going to make it. I feel sick. I'm too tired. I'm not going to make it to this corner. So if I tune all that out, I'll run further.
I love it. That's a good that's a good way to do it. Yeah, I put my headphones on. I usually go to like a local there's a high school not far from where I live, and I'll just go to the track. And that's that. I used to just kind of run around the neighborhood here, and I didn't know how far it was, So then when I went to the track, that was a game changer because then you can just count the laps. But I listen to music, and it's definitely one of my favorite things to do. Just go listen to a record and run.
I'm gonna try that because maybe that'll help tune out all the noise.
Yeah, maybe it will. But be careful too, because then when like a fast song comes on and then you're like running and you get all excited, and then you're running too fast and get totally winded. So I've had to learn to like pace myself. If like like Have to Drive In comes on or something, and I'm like,
just take off. Yeah, that's the hardest part is pacing yourself because I would feel like I was going slow, but I was actually still going way too fast.
Right. Yeah, and then getting cadence and stuff too, right? Like where you're not. Somebody taught me about that, where I'm not taking too big of steps because I was definitely doing that too. Yeah, there's so much more to learn about it. I mean, and then you get guys like, Ben Gibbard and stuff. I mean, he runs like 100-mile marathons now.
Really?
Yeah, he was telling me about it. Like they're called ultras, and yeah, he'll like get dropped off outside of town when they're on tour and just run like 50 miles into town for the show.
When I hear of people doing that, I'm amazed. Like I had someone on the show recently and they're like, yeah, I ran 6 miles this morning. And I'm like, 6 this
How do you
morning?
do that?
What?
I know.
I guess you just build up to it. I don't know. I've only been doing it a year, so.
Yeah, same for me. It's kind of new for me too. So maybe, who knows, the next time when our bands play together in Brooklyn or Seattle, if you guys are out here, then in a year we'll be talking about how we're running our first ultra marathon.
Yeah, we'll meet up with Ben and run 50 miles into town to the gig. It'll be great.
I hope so.
Well, Rocky, I'm excited for everybody to hear The Quiet Year by Suzzallo. Everybody, it's out May 2nd, so if you love mid to late 90s melodic punk like I do, Jawbreaker, Drive Like Jehu, Far, all those type of bands, all that stuff, I love it. The record is fantastic. Please check it out. And Rocky, I really appreciate you. I hope you and your family are doing well. I wish you all the best. And thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Keith. It's been a real pleasure. All the best to you, buddy.
And there you have it, Rocky Votolato. Excellent conversation. Really great talking to Rocky. When I started reading about his new band, Suzzallo, I was gutted. Reading about the history and the passing of his child, Kienan, and, how he took all of that and funneled it into this new creative endeavor. Because if you've been through something like that, only you can understand. And that's the thing about grief, or that particular type of grief, is you can really only truly understand it if you've been through it. Rocky's been through it. My family went through it. So my heart really went out to him. And I'm glad that he and his family were able to make it to where they are. And I'm glad that he has the support of friends and family and this new band to channel that grief and have something positive come from all of this. Suzzallo is an excellent band. The Quiet Year is an excellent record. Definitely make sure you check it out. It's one of my favorite records of the year already. It's great. If you love that 90s sound, all the influences mentioned during the interview, you will love that record. And it was just really great connecting with Rocky and hearing all about his life. And, he's done so much great stuff over the years. And I'm looking forward to more from Suzzallo. So thank you so much, Rocky, for coming on the show, and I wish you all the best. So let's check in. How are we doing? I have been having the most difficult 3 weeks ever. My day job is incredibly busy. I'm working all day, all night, all weekend. It gets to the weekend, and then I just barely have enough time to put the podcast together, which is why I haven't checked in a while. It's just been work all day, all night, all weekend. And then when it comes time to record the podcast and put this all together, I look at the digital camera and I just get a sick feeling in my stomach. And I'm like, I can't do it. I can't do it because there's been no downtime. There has been zero downtime, which is bad. And but I have some time tonight, so it's almost 11 p.m. here on a Saturday. And I was like, I got to record an ending to the show. I've got a little bit of time here. And it's been a while since I checked in. So that's going on. Just trying to make it through the next couple weeks, and then hopefully things will slow down a bit again. But one thing I did do recently was catch the Refused final tour with Orange 9mm and Quicksand. What a show that was. That was at Brooklyn Paramount in Brooklyn, New York. And I don't know if you've ever been to that venue, but that was my first time there. The first time I was supposed to go there was that Dillinger Escape Plan reunion show with Dead Guy and the Callous Cowboys. I was sick. I did not get to go. So this was my first visit to Brooklyn Paramount, this Refused show. And let me tell you, what an impressive venue it was. I mean, I was blown away. And the stage is great because you can see from anywhere. It's a slanted floor. And the show was completely sold out. And despite that, there was not people backing up 1 centimeter to my face. And they have 10 feet in front of them and can walk 10, 20 steps forward. But for some reason insist on standing 1 centimeter from my face. And then there's a guy right behind me and I can't move back. That didn't really happen at a sold out show. So I'm happy about that. Orange 9mm opened the show.
In my head and search for what makes me need to go away on my fear and construct the jet set. I'm cutting and you're training. I'm cutting and you're training. Smiling at my point most dead. Don't let us out like my point most dead. 4, 4, 4, 4.
Great to see Orange 9mm again. Great live band, and always great to see Chris Enriquez doing his thing behind the kit. And after Orange 9mm was Quicksand. Who are just always great to see. Now, I've heard people complain about the 3-piece Quicksand, usually people on the internet, and I have to say, they lost nothing from being a 3-piece at this performance. It was great. I saw them back in 2017, I think it was, at Warsaw, when the 3-piece was new, and at that time, yes, there was 1 or 2 songs that could have benefited from the 2 guitar players, but whatever the system is, they've got it figured out now. Everything was great. I loved it. They were fantastic. And closing the show was Refused. This was my first time ever seeing Refused, and I'm glad I did. I'm glad I went to the show. I'm glad I stayed until the very end of the show, through all the encores and everything, because it was just great hearing the band. It was great seeing the band. It was great hearing the stories from Dennis and just celebrating the final tour of the band with everybody. And the set list was everything you wanted to hear was there. It's a band I've enjoyed for a long time. And this is another show where everybody on the bill has been on the podcast. I love that. So great stuff. Farewell Refused. You've given us so much. And best of luck to you, Dennis, and everyone else in the band for whatever comes next. But we know Dennis is in Venice Casino. And you know what band of Dennis's I've been listening to a lot lately? Invasion. It's like a post-punk shoegaze type band. Check them out. It's really good. I've got more show recaps coming up. There was the Memory Entry record release show in Brooklyn. There's other shows I went to that I can't even remember, but and tomorrow I'm going to see On the Might of Princes and Seisha at Bowery Ballroom. And then right after that, I'm going to see Teenage Wrist, Better Lovers, Glassjaw, and Poison the Well at Brooklyn Paramount. I'll be back there again, so it's going to be a full day of shows. So I'll have some more content to bring back to you. Besides that, I'm just working on the band, my band Memory Entry. We are deep into writing the first LP, working hard on that. We have a couple copies of our debut EP, Our World is Going to Disappear. They're up at mindovermatterrecords.com. There's only a few left. There's been a few left for a minute. If you want to get it, pick it up. Let's try to sell this thing out. And I have some of the release day variants of the record. Here, let me show you one. It's a special release day variant of the record. Check that out. Look, limited to 20. Can you see that? Limited to 20. So it's got this special cover, right? Look at that. And the standard LP packaging is in there, right? So you're definitely going to want to get one of these if you can. I'm going to make a post on our Instagram. Follow me at Memory Entry. I got to buy some mailers and stuff so I can ship these out. I will be selling what I have left to you. So keep an eye out for that. So we're writing LP1. Oh, and we just announced a show July 21st at the Wood Shop in Brooklyn. We'll be playing with post-rock greats, Signal Hill, one of my favorite bands, one of my favorite post-rock bands. And North End will be supporting the show, another great post-rock band. Can't wait to play that. That's going to be a fun one, and Signal Hill has not played a show since 2016, so I'm very excited for that. Come if you're in the area. All right, let's check in with the New Scene Community Hour. I have a Spotify comment I want to read here. Okay, we've got a comment here from No Land Drums on episode 274 with John Maiello of Dead Bars. No Land Drums says, "Great job, Keith, but I must admit I didn't expect to hear the end is coming for this podcast. Well, not the end, but just not every Monday having a new guest to hear from. If it is all possible to have Tommy back, I for one miss hearing this is Keith and Tommy. Wishing you continued success on every venture you embark upon. Thank you, No Land Drums." Yes, I did make an announcement in that episode that the podcast is going to be scaled back next year. I need a break. I am burnt out. I'm not loving it as much as I used to. I'm not able to keep up with it as much as I used to. And like I mentioned in that episode, my life is just different now. There's different stuff I want to do. I might be starting another new band. I'm going to try to, at least. There's solo ambient stuff I wanted to try to get going for a long time now. There's home recording stuff I want to figure out. And I'm never going to know what's next if I never make time for it. And I just don't want to do this anymore all the time. I don't want to sit here in front of computers working 14 hours a day, every day for the rest of my life. I have to make room to find out what's next and see what that's going to be. So there might be 12 episodes next year. There might be 24. I don't know. I'm going to scale it back, see what's happening and see what happens. But next year will be a lighter year. I'll still be here. And Tommy will still be here. He usually comes back once a year right before he goes back to school to guest host with me. So that happens every year. If you haven't heard those, he's been doing it for the last 3 years, I think, around the end of August. So look for those episodes. It's always great to have Tommy back on the show. Also, a show update. I've been putting music in the show for a while now because I didn't want to because I was afraid this was going to happen, but Spotify is starting to take them down because of copyright stuff. There are some back episodes missing. I'm in the process of taking all the music out and putting them back and getting them relisted, so that's in progress. I didn't want to put music in, and people asked for it, and then I saw other podcasts were doing it, and I knew this was going to happen. I knew this was going to happen at one point, and now it's happening, so I am in the process of pulling music out of episodes and getting them relisted on Spotify. So if you see one missing, it'll be back soon enough. That's everything that's going on this week. I'm back next week with a new episode and a new guest. So I'll see you then.